Over the next 3 days, I'm going to be riding 450 miles from the top to the bottom of Portugal with such elite talents as Lawrence Tindam, Ted King, Sergio Paulino, and Rui Vinhas. Will I be able to make it? Will I have to climb to the Sagwagon? I'm here with the luxury tour company inGamba. I'm going to be testing this Pinarello Dogma. Riding with inGamba, we have such World Tour amenities as nightly massage, pro mechanics taking care of the bikes. Will that be enough to get me to the end? We shall see. Come along for the ride.
We leave from here, we go left, and then we go straight to the roundabout with the mark of kilometer 0.
Starting today inside a fort, what I would call a castle. The drawbridge and everything. Not a shabby place to start a ride. We're at kilometer 0 of the N2, what many call the Route 66 of Portugal, running north to south. The country is 350 miles north to south. We're riding 450, taking a bit of a circuitous route and a whole lot of climbing to boot. Luckily, Lawrence is going to pull the whole way.
I'm going to pull the whole way. Not.
Kilometer 0. Here's the crew.
Have fun, guys.
What I noticed today, which I think is really smart, we did it at it back in the days. The white lid is water and the red lid is sugar, which means the soigneurs never have to write down W and S on the bottles anymore.
Got a flat tire, get it changed like a pro. Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
I also eat them during the night.
This is how inGamba does a coffee stop. Yeah, so Lawrence, I've never been a professional. I've seen a lot of professionals. I've seen you race as a professional. I know you guys do coffee stops. When you were racing World Tour, did you have coffee stops like this? Someone racking the bikes, putting bottles in there?
Only when we were training without the team. So with my friends, down south in the Netherlands, we stopped always for coffee. And my first team still did, but at the end they didn't do it anymore. So it's really back to the old life. But you see, the guy, the soigneur is changing all the bottles. And for sure that they didn't do at the pros.
No.
So it's actually better than with the pros. Some salt is nice.
Day one, done and dusted. 100 what? 40 miles? 140 roundabouts? 140 pasta and or rice snacks. Now it's time to chill. Thank you, sir. Wonderful. Thank you, sir. What are we drinking?
This is your finished bottle. This makes you go fast tomorrow. I'm gonna guess some sort of carbohydrate recupero.
Matthew, what's the verdict? Day one, good idea, bad idea, both?
There is regret there somewhere.
Also joy? Maybe? Too soon?
Mostly regret.
Too soon?
Fear, impending doom. Good times.
inGamba into day one was exceptional for a number of reasons, but primarily because of the support. Having professional mechanics and soigneurs taking care of very non-professional riders was an absolute treat. You come out of the hotel and the bikes are lined up. Often I hop on bikes, as you guys know, at press events where bikes are set up, but typically there's a fair amount of setup that each of us will do individually to get the bikes kind of dialed in. Here, I provided my fit specs ahead of time. When I showed up, I handed Sergio my pedals and saddle, walked out the morning of the event. The bike was fully dialed. I clipped into a bike that already had full bottles on it and a computer with a route loaded on it that was not mine, and we went off and rode 140 miles. Two inGamba vehicles follow and leapfrog group, and in seemingly every other roundabout, of which there were many roundabouts, there was a vehicle there handing up bottles, taking vests or arm warmers. So we only had to stop when we wanted to stop, and with Lawrence and Ted leading the charge, stopping wasn't on the menu too often. As an American accustomed to stop lights and stop signs, riding into where roundabouts are the primary thing was a treat, just because you can just keep the party going. Of course, the best riding was not through the roundabouts, but it was out in the countryside where the climbs were, I appreciated, a relatively shallow gradient, and the descents were spectacular. One in particular I enjoyed was a curvaceous serpentine descent down through vineyards. Being able to follow the steady wheels of Ted and Lawrence and Sergio and Rui made it feel not just exhilaratingly fun, but also safe and controlled. Although we were riding what for Lawrence and Ted was a very pedestrian pace, 140 miles, 10K or 12K of climbing, whatever it was still a lot. So we arrived at the hotel fairly tired. At the hotel, get a late lunch, and then, speaking of this professional treatment, got a fantastic massage, one of the best / most painful massages I've had in quite some time. Then it was time for aperitifs, a delicious dinner, rinse and repeat. Here comes day two.
From here, we turn left, we do this small hill, and then we go a little bit down, we turn left, we cross the dam. After the dam, we turn right, and then we go down and flat, side by side with the river.
Pace back to the group. How sweet is that? So at the start, Lauren said he wasn't going to pull the whole time. He's basically been pulling the whole time. He and Ted have been sitting on the front. Sergio's been taking a lot of pulls. You know, I'll take a token pull every couple hours for a minute or two. Now we're settling into the rhythm of doing half a ride in the morning, stopping for a beautiful coffee stop, and then slogging out the second half.
It's not completely flat, but it's easy. Okay. We go direction to Mora in about 20 k's, and then we start to go more to the left. Okay. When we pass the mark of 500 kilometers, we're gonna do a quickie stop for take a picture if you want, guys. Good luck.
We're going to need it. Day 3, the big one. 280k, 175-ish miles. Gonna finish off the N2 in Faro, the southern end of Portugal. Thankfully, forecast is calling for a screaming tailwind picking up about 10 o'clock. It's gonna be a good long day on the bike. I'm gonna get back where I belong, sitting behind these gentlemen, taking us all the way south.
Morning.
We got luxury pros front and back, Rui Vinhas and Sergio Paulino, keeping all their kitty cats herded and taking long pulls as needed. Climbing off the bike yesterday, like Rui's taking my bike before I'm even unclipped, even in a coffee shop. The amount of support on this trip is ludicrous. You know, it was set up as the best parts of pro cycling, being on a pro cycling team without, you know, having to have the talent to do the work. But I've been around pro cycling a lot, and the experience here is in many ways a higher level of service than pro riders get. There we go. Just getting some money. So what was the idea? What was the genesis behind inGamba?
I mean, the basic idea was in 2010 when I was racing as a Cervelo test team. I was just really tired of training hard and starving myself all the time. And you know, I was living in Tuscany where it was a beautiful area for food and wine, and I couldn't really have any of it because I was staring at a power meter all the time. So Ted and I were having lunch. We were both at Cervelo then. We were having lunch, and I just kind of on a placemat started deciding a week of my favorite rides, my favorite foods, my favorite restaurants, places to eat, vineyards to go to. And that's how it started with that one trip. And then one trip led to two, to now we do 60 a year. You know, but with that ideal of great support, like a pro tour team. So the vehicles, the bikes, the soigneurs, the mechanics, the daily bike washes, all that stuff that you experience on a World Tour team. But then also with food and wine as a really important piece, which is key, you know. So we're generally riding in the morning, done by lunch, and then there's massages in the afternoon. Mechanics look after the bikes every day, just like on a team, you know, and that was it. That was the idea.
So quiet. Dig it. How much to go? 230?
239.
239. Only 239 kilometers to go.
Gang of mafioso Portuguese gentlemen.
Coffee stop number 2 of the day at kilometer 205. Well needed. Much appreciated. Once more with enthusiasm.
Sowieso, waarom ga je niet naar voren?
738K from the tippity top to the Tushita tail. That was the N2 Portugal, north to south. That was quite a treat. We had a blazing tailwind, just sitting behind the engines of Sergio and Rui for part of the day, and Lawrence and Ted the rest. It would have been quite a different story if the wind was blowing the other direction. We're looking at, what are our stats here? Camera's not focusing. We're looking at 8 hours for 280K. Not bad for the 4 Joes who are sitting behind the 4 pros. Now it's back to the hotel to clean up. Right now we are down lovely Faro, southern Portugal. Normally I would do my post-ride gear wrap-ups with the bike, but the pro mechanics here are so efficient and so busy, they're already breaking down and washing the bikes to pack them up for the next trip, so I will not bother them with that, and we'll just use B-roll of the bike instead. I want to talk 2 things about bikes. 1, the machinery itself, and 2, the professional maintenance thereof. The bike for this trip, it's a race bike. Joao was talking about how inGamba is the very best parts of being on a World Tour pro race team, including having pro race equipment, and the Pinarello Dogma is very much that. Aero wheels, Zipp 303S's, Vittoria Corsa Next 28 mil tubeless tires. Definitely a race machine, and going fast on a race bike feels good, especially coming off of doing a long ride down the California coast on 35 mil tires. Getting on this bike, especially sitting behind these former World Tour racers, and today when we had a screaming tailwind, going fast on a race bike feels good. No 2 ways about that. Some things that don't feel great about a race bike, particularly an aero race bike, is the lack of give. So for instance, Pinarello Dogma has got a pretty substantially aero seat post, which isn't the most forgiving thing on the world. Most of the time the roads were great, but occasionally we'd roll through towns, there'd be some quaint cobblestone streets, and you can certainly feel that coming up through the bike. inGamba gives you the option to bring your own saddle, because you can have the nicest bike in the world, and if the contact points don't agree with you, it don't matter. You're not going to be happy, especially on a long 450-mile 3-day jaunt. They suggest you bring your own saddle. I absolutely took them up on that. I brought a Specialized Power Elaston, a shape that I very much appreciate, and one that has a little bit more padding. This is a saddle that I used for my very first Unbound Gravel 200 because of that shape and the padding. So comfortable rear ends is happy rear ends, and you want your rear end to be happy when you're in the saddle for like 8 hours like we were today. Up front, having happy hands, that also makes for a happy rider. And there is something I would change were I to select my own bike for another 450-mile 3-day ride. Very much unlike the typical product launch, where there's a lot of fiddling around with getting the saddle height right and saddle fore-aft, maybe adjusting the stack at a reach. On this, I climbed on the bike, clipped in, and rode 450 miles. That was made possible due to the pro mechanics dialing in the fit exactly to my measurements. To do that, they use traditional bar and stem. The Pinarello Dogma also certainly works with its own house brand Most integrated cockpit. That certainly looks a lot cleaner, but having the 2-piece cockpit makes it much easier to adjust stack and reach per rider. So that's something I would change, not to necessarily have an integrated setup, but just to have a slightly wider top for the bars. Myself and the other guys who also don't happen to be former professionals, we're doing a lot of this towards the end of the rides, particularly today. It's just having a narrow round bar doesn't give you a lot of area over which to disperse the pressure. So that would be, looking for tiny nits to pick. That would be a nit to pick. When I last tested a Pinarello Dogma, it had the integrated cockpit, and there my hands weren't happy in the drops, and there's a sculpted drop that's got an arrow shape, which seems to me like a dumb thing, frankly. Like a place where you put your hands, it doesn't really matter if there's a teensy-tiny marginal gain to be had there. Like if your hands are going numb, which was my experience when I did a big ride up and over Rocky Mountain National Park, and yeah, fingers are going numb. Doesn't matter if you're saving 0.06 watts, whatever. So. But riding a high-end bike, very nice. Riding an immaculately maintained bike, super cool. Riding a very nice bike that is immaculately maintained, like the best.